Welcome to the S.O.A.P video series from Oak Tree Community Church in South Bend, Indiana. We are in the book of Numbers, and this is...
We always got to look. Week 4.
Week 4.
Yeah.
Out of 8, so that we're going to be coming... Yeah, we're coming up to about the halfway point.
Nice.
There's 36... I always have to double check here. There's 36 chapters in the book of Numbers, and we're going to be in chapters 13, 14, and 15 this week.
Right.
So not quite halfway through the book, but halfway through the time that we're spending in the book.
Right. Right. So last week we ended with the nation of Israel on the move. You know, woo! And there were some complaints going around. There was the foreign rabble,
The riffraff.
the riffraff was causing trouble, and God got angry.
Yeah.
And there was a fire around the outside of the nation of Israel, which happened to be where the rabble was too. And some of the Jewish people were there too. And then there was a second issue where Moses is, I was like, Moses' brother and sister.
Yep.
Maybe there was some jealousy. There's something going on there, but they were causing some problems.
Yeah.
Especially her. She was immediately got leprosy and had to follow the rules and had to go outside of camp for 7 days. God graciously stayed there.
Yep.
She's healed now, and now they're on the move.
Back in camp, and they're ready to go.
Yeah. So where are they going?
So they're headed to Canaan, right?
Right.
Finally, they have been, I mean, if you think about it, the last time this family, let's not forget Israel's a family. The last time this family was in Canaan, we're in Numbers 13 now, right?
Right.
The last time this family was in Canaan was Genesis, like 46.
Yeah, right. So that would have been Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, right? And,
Jacob's
and
family
all of his,
moves
getting
down.
thwn in the pit, and that whole story. Yeah.
Yep. So then,
And I think we said like
the,
75 people, right?
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, about 75 people. Jacob, the rest of the sons, their wives, their kids.
Yeah, big famine in Egypt.
Right.
Or famine in
all over the place. They moved down. So in the mid Genesis 40s, I don't remember the exact chapter, but it's been 400 plus years since this family has been in the land of Canaan.
Wow, that kind of puts it in perspective.
Technically, they're going back home.
Right.
It's the land that God has promised Abraham's descendants. That's them. Here we go. They're coming north out of Sinai in the Arabian Peninsula, coming north to what's called in the text the Negev. Right. And it's just a Hebrew word that means south or southern region.
Yep.
So there's going to be a city called Kadesh Barnea, whatever, and they're going to come, and that is supposed to be the point by which they go in and take over the land.
Okay. So they have some decisions to make, and we know from Sunday school and all over that they wandered around the desert for 40 years.
Yep.
So something happens.
Yep.
And we get to read about the something happens this week.
They got lost between Sinai.
Yeah, it's not that they didn't stop for directions. Moses didn't stop for directions. That wasn't
GPS wasn't working. No cell service out in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, but for the spoilers, they end up sending spies into the promised land. The spies come back and say we shouldn't go in.
But it was so good.
Yeah, right.
The report that they
I'm getting way ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's come back around.
But that was the genesis for saying, all right, you guys don't.
Yeah,
you guys aren't going to get in. So if we back all the way up to to verse 1, the Lord spoke to Moses. So it's starting out just like we've seen the past 3 weeks.
Several chapters, yeah.
And he says, send out some men to investigate the land of Canaan, which I am giving you. Mm-hmm. And it's awesome because God is telling them, hey, go check it out.
Check it out.
Yep. And we think everything is good, and then you read the little footnotes, and it says, hey, go check out Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 22, and that says the nation of Israel says to Moses, "Hey, ask God if we can send some spies in."
Right.
So now it becomes a question of trust, right? If God tells them, "Hey, go do this," obviously you go do it. If you have to ask God, "Wait,
Yeah.
can we send some spies in?
Can we go check it out before
to the
we
land
go
that you
in?"
said is ours and we're
Yeah.
gonna get?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So
You know-
how do we take that?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
So they come up to the thing and before they, I mean, obviously they haven't been there for 400 years. There are a lot of
Right.
tribes, in fact, God is specifically telling them, when you go into the land that I'm going to give to you, don't do these things. That you're gonna,
Right.
all this stuff. So, I mean, they know that the people are there.
Right.
It's worth checking out before
Yeah.
they just go trampsing around. Boom, 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 boom.
Well, I take it as the due diligence.
Yeah.
A former elder at our church always said, you have a mind. God gave you the mind. He intends you to use it.
Right.
And it's just prudent to do things.
Yeah.
And it would be prudent to send some people in, some spies, to check out so you know where to go, you know where to avoid.
Right.
You know what to do.
And so God said, okay, so fine, send in some spies, but here's how you're going to do it.
Yep. And
He put some structure around it.
So one from each tribe.
One from each tribe.
Right, which means how many we got?
12 guys.
12 guys, right? And there's a list in there.
Yep, by name.
And like every list, they're always a little bit different
Yeah.
in there.
Yep. So this time, Levi is not mentioned. So there's no representative of Levi,
Right.
which is interesting because
kinda makes
Levi
some
is
sense.
not taking land. The
Right.
tribe of Levi won't get land, right?
Yep. So that's where the priests are coming from, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So both of Joseph's sons are mentioned by name. Levi's not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
big deal. However, there is a name in here that you don't expect, and that is in verse
Manasseh?
8, from the tribe of Ephraim,
Ephraim. All right.
is Hoshea, the son of Nun. Hoshea, we're like, okay, you're just reading through the list of names, it's just
Yeah,
another guy, right? Until you get to verse 16. These are the names of the men whom Moses sent to investigate the land. And Moses gave Hoshea the name Yehoshua.
Which still doesn't help us.
Doesn't have one, but if you're reading it in English, it's Joshua, right?
Yeah.
So this is our guy, Joshua. That's not his initial, or it's not his real name. It's not his. And Hoshea is the same root by which we get Hosea the prophet, Isaiah the prophet, Joshua, Yeshua. All of these Hebrew names are from the same root word, which is Shua or Yasha, and those both work together and they mean help or call for help or receive help. Okay. Today we would use words like deliver or save or salvation.
Right.
And so Hoshea means he saves or he saved or helped, right? By putting the Yah on the front of it or the Yeh in the front of it, it connects it to God's personal name, Jehovah.
Okay.
And so now it's Jehovah saves, it's the Lord saves.
Yeah.
And so as they were getting ready to go into the land, Moses said, hey, or at some point, I guess, Moses says, you're not just he saved, you are the Lord saved, Jehovah saved.
So nice switch, because I'm looking for Joshua in there, because I always thought Joshua and Caleb, right, are two of the spies and that it's about.
Yep.
But yet he's not on the list.
Right.
It's like, all right, it's just something I took wrong. So
Yep.
so it's great to hear that.
Yep. So that's by the way, fun fact. As if that's not enough of a fun fact. I think this is the first name, maybe Jochebed, which was Moses' mom, but I think this is the first name that in the Bible, as you're reading through the Bible, that intentionally has God's name attached to a name. You find a whole bunch of them later on. Jehoshaphat, Josiah, a lot of these Yeho names, Jehoiakim, all of these names are, but this is the first one.
Yeah, interesting. And what he does
and that's
later is
interesting
that's really cool.
too. So they go in, get past my
so
fun
they have
facts.
so they have a bunch of jobs, right? Their job is to find out what the land is like. Are the people weak or strong? Are there few or many? Is the land good, bad? So that they have some things to do. They need to look to see if there's fortified cities or are they just camps, tents. And oh, by the way, bring back some fruit.
Yeah, right.
I love it.
Because it was time for grapes. It was that time of the year for grapes, right?
Yep. And the way I picture it is, the rest of the nation is still in the desert. God is feeding them every day. They get manna, and I'm sure it didn't happen this way, but looking across the Jordan, they see basically an Eden with all this food. Hey, bring me back some grapes on your way back. But I don't think that happened because I don't think the nation of Israel would have gotten that close.
I don't think they're quite that close.
The spies would have.
Yeah.
People might have picked up on that.
So they're still way south, and the guys go. So
so we actually don't learn a lot, right? I mean, on the investigation.
Yeah, not
there's
really.
some in there, right? But we know they were in there for 40 days.
Right, and that 40 days, it's really interesting because it says from the wilderness of Zin, which is south, to Rehav at Label Hamat, which Tom Constable places. I know it's way north because they were supposed to go south to north, like cover everything.
Yeah.
But he places that like 100 miles north of the Sea of Galilee, well into Syria.
Wow,
Like even further north than
high.
Damascus, possibly.
Right.
So he says that they
now would these 40 guys have stuck together, or would they have split up?
Well, it's only 12 guys, right?
Oh, sorry,
You got 12
sorry.
guys for 40 days.
Right.
I would think at least pairs, whatever. But that's a lot of land, even for 40 days. And you're trying to stay hidden because you're spies,
Right.
or at least not make a big, as you're walking through cities or whatever, you're going to be,
Right. Yep. Yep. Okay, so they come back out, and of course they have to give a report.
Yep.
And the report is, yes, it is exactly what God said. It is land of milk and honey. Check out these grapes.
Yep.
But then it's, hey, these guys are too strong.
Yep.
We can't beat them.
Yep, the cities are fortified. They're taller than we are. They're stronger than we are. These are not Bedouins in the tents like we've seen as we've wandered through the desert.
Yep. So we get into chapter 14, and my terminology is the nation of Israel freaks out.
Yeah.
Right, and they're saying things like, "We should have never left."
Yep.
Why would God bring us here only to have us die here?
Pop quiz.
Okay.
All right. From Sunday school, 12 spies go in. They come back, give their report. How many spies officially gave a good report as opposed to a bad report?
Oh, you want me to answer because I'm the only one here?
You're the only one
here.
You should have been able to answer on the video already.
Yeah. So I'm going to go... Well, interestingly enough, I would say 10 gave a bad report, 1 gave a good report, and the other one is undetermined because it doesn't state right there.
But that's not how it's taught, right? If you go back, that's not how I remember it. I always remember,
they're together.
10 were bad and 2 were good, right? And it's the 10 and the 2, but when you actually read the text, it only says that Caleb said, "No, let's go do it."
Yeah, but it also says that the nation wanted to stone them.
Well, because by the time you get down to it, they're like, "Oh, like you said, they freaked out."
Right.
Okay.
Oh, that's true. Later they come, hey guys, let's trust
Moses
God.
and Aaron and Caleb and Joshua was in here too.
Yep.
Right.
Guys,
but Joshua wasn't mentioned as one who gave a good report. So sorry to burst your bubble, but.
Yeah. So, they say, hey, we should trust God, which seems like it'd be a reasonable thing to do. And the nation of Israel comes back with, stone them, kill them. Yeah. And God makes an appearance.
Yeah.
Right? So you kind of know it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so what's God say?
God says, "You people tick me off."
Yeah.
I am ready to.
It is. It's a mom and a dad against the kids,
out.
right? I don't know what to do with you anymore. Of course, he's God. He knows what he wants to do.
And we have to deal with this because it sounds like, especially from a human perspective, and we're reading this, and it sounds like Moses has to talk God down.
Right.
It's like, we got to be careful with that.
Well, he even says, what does he say? Well, you want the whole world to know how great you are, don't you?
Yeah.
It's almost like some of Paul's things saying, that we've gone through.
Moses is really concerned about God's reputation, and almost,
which is awesome.
It's absolutely awesome, almost more than God is, in a sense,
Yeah.
But again, Moses is human, and no matter how close he gets to God, he's not God. And God partially is. God could have started over. He could have wiped the whole thing off the face of the planet, one from each family, and started over. He promised. He had promises he had to keep. Right. He's made promises to Abraham. He's got to. You know what? 12 families is still the nation of Israel.
Yeah.
We don't need 2.5 million, 3 million people. We don't need all of you. I can start. In fact, he offered Moses, why don't I just start over with your family? How if we just start over with you?
Yeah.
And Moses is like, do you realize what the other people, the nations, are going to think of you if you do this?
Right.
And by the way, that's not a bad perspective for us as we're going through life.
Our lives. Yeah.
If we do these things, if our family does these things, if our businesses, if we run businesses, if our church does these things, if whatever, what are the unbelievers around us going to think about God?
Right.
Based on what we're doing.
Nice.
It's not a bad perspective.
Yeah, nice one. Very nice. Okay, so God doesn't wipe them out, but there are consequences for it.
Yeah.
And the consequences are all men and women of a certain age and older will not be able to go into the promised land.
Yeah, they're going to die. They're going to die, but that's long term.
Right.
At some point over the next 38 years or so,
right,
they're going to die. But the spies,
right,
who said we can't do this.
Yeah, go ahead.
God
totally missed it.
God took them out right away.
Yeah.
He said, "You're going to die by the plague." Just so there's a couple of different levels. The people who instigated the rebellion, they died immediately. The people who followed the rebellion, their consequence was longer term out.
Right.
But God said, as a nation,
still get to live, but you don't get the benefit.
You don't get to go in.
Right.
Your children will get to go in. I'm not breaking my promises. Your children will see. Your children will partake. Your children will engage in everything that I had for you, and you threw it away.
Yep. All right, so there seems to be an addition error here someplace with 40 years, because it's 40 years to go in. After this event happened, it seems like it's more in the 30s.
Yeah.
To go in.
Well, so because God said, here's your punishment for every day that they were in the land spying on the land for 40 days, that's how much time you're going to be in the desert.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. And then it seems like the time that they left Egypt, came down to Sinai and whatever to before the spies was about 2 years.
Yeah, it's been almost 2 years since they left Egypt at this point.
Yeah.
They spent a year at Sinai, somewhere between Egypt and Sinai. They had at least one 3-month oasis, plus other stops along the way, plus travel time. And now it's been a few weeks to get from Sinai up to Kadesh Barnea. Now it's been 40 days that they were spying on the land. So, sometimes we think, they went from Egypt to Sinai to Canaan, like really quickly. It's been almost 2 years. And I think that God counted that time because they were still in the desert, right? They were still homeless in a sense. I think he counted that as part of time served. So it's really only about another 38 years before they finally get up to the west side or the east side of the Jordan. And we see Joshua sending spies in again and going to Jericho, and then they cross over the Jordan.
Okay, good. So then we get to chapter 15. We're only reading a small subsection of 15. So the part that we get to read is rules for unintended sin. And then also rules for deliberate sin, too.
Yeah. The whole chapter reminds us that God is still even dealing with them in this time of rebellion, really, under these consequences. He still reminds them there is still offering for sin. I'm still a gracious God. You still come back to me. There's still Day of Atonement. There's still all of the stuff that he's laid out in Exodus and Leviticus. Yeah. That stuff still remains in effect.
So is the unintended sin, is it the Day of Atonement that they're talking about, or is it something different?
I think it looks, there are a lot of similarities between this and Leviticus 16, where we have the whole Day of Atonement laid out, but it's not exact. So I think it's probably like inclusive.
Okay. So the deal is, if somebody sins and it's not intentional, they need to have the whole community come together and prepare a burnt offering to make atonement, or is it just going to be the person that?
No, it's really interesting as you go through this section in chapter 15 verses 22 through 29. These yous are all plural. So we would say they're y'alls. If y'all sin unintentionally, so these are community type things, which is why I think Day of Atonement's included here.
Okay.
There are some individuals that you bring your individual stuff, but he's really looking at this as a community. If you guys, as you're wandering, as you're living, you're going to be breaking some of my laws unintentionally. I've made provision for that, is really all he's saying.
So the interesting thing in my mind too is it's not only for the nation of Israel, but also for resident foreigners.
Yeah, people who have chosen to live with them, live under the law, even though they're not Jews.
Yeah.
So the mixed multitude who are not riffraff. Rabble.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah, so then we get to the opposite side where there's intended sin.
And this one switches to singular. The person who does this, not y'all. Nice. These are not community sins. This is a person who intentionally, willfully, deliberately knows the law, knows the rules, and essentially thumbs his nose at God and says, I'm going to do what I want.
Yep. And it says must be cut off from the tribe. And that you should remember hearing that from a week or two ago.
Yeah.
And there it was maybe a little fuzzy on what the penalty was. Pretty clear here.
Yeah, here it's...
the consequences are stoned by the nation.
Yeah.
Also for a resident foreigner. And then immediately after this, we actually see it played out too.
Yeah,
somebody was picking up some wood, I think, on Sabbath.
Right. Yep. Now, it's interesting. In verse 30, in the net, it says at the end, in the middle of verse 30, insults the Lord. I looked up this word. And it's a rare word that shows up only 7 times in Hebrew in the Old Testament. 6 of the 7 times, including this one, is an insult directly to God. Only 1 time in the Psalms does it refer to people, and it really has an idea of reviling or blaspheming. So this isn't just, first of all, it's not unintentional. It is deliberate. Right. But it is like a deliberate, almost a hostile, deliberate type thing. The Ethiopian word that's similar to the Hebrew word has the idea of throwing something, like throwing stones, hurling accusations, something. So this is a person who's not just thumbing his nose at God. He's just like, come on, I dare you to do something about it. And God says... Okay.
Try me.
Yeah. It reminds me of the 3rd warning passage in Hebrews, where it says that if a person can get so far away from God that they pass a point of no return where they can't repent anymore. And some people, well, how could God do that? And the description is that the rain of God's word is constantly falling on them. God is constantly trying to bring this person back. And it's like they're doing everything in their power to run away from God.
Yeah.
Under grace in the church, we don't lose our salvation, anything like that. But there is potential for physical death as a consequence. And physical death was the consequence back here, too.
Right. Right.
So
we end kind of on a down note.
Well,
but
it's not in the reading, but the last few verses of chapter 15, if you want to read it, it's worth it, because this is where the idea of tassels come in, and the tassels on the bottom of their robes. The whole point of the tassels, and it was supposed to be the same color for everybody, and the whole point of the tassels was sort of like, you tie a string on your finger to remind you of something.
Yeah.
The whole point of the tassels was when you see the blue string,
blue thread in there.
you remember God's law.
So is that still done today?
Some people, yeah.
Yeah.
The ultra orthodox will still do, and some Orthodox will still do tassels and stuff.
Okay.
But the whole point, even you see, so it's not so much ending on a down note, because God brings it back and says, "I'll tell you what, I'll give you a string if that's what it helps you to remember the law.
Yeah.
I'll give you whatever it takes to help you remember."
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Good point. Yeah. Exactly.
God is not out here waiting for us to fail so he can smack us down.
Right.
Yeah, he's doing everything
he
he can.
but he wants us to succeed.
Absolutely, and and he's the same God in the Old Testament as he is in the New Testament. And yeah, the rules were a little bit different for the Israelites back then, but it's the same God, it's the same grace, it's the same everything, and they are just a really good example of what we do inside, not so much outside anymore, but they were doing it outside, and the punishments seem more severe and more quicker, but it's the same God. And that should remind us of how we're supposed to live.
Okay. All right. So I think that's the end for today.
Yeah, I think so. Just another good passage to remind us about God.
Yeah.
I think is the big takeaway. Still learning about God. It's one of the great things about the Old Testament is that what we believe in the New Testament is built on the theology of the Old Testament. And so, anyway, yeah, God does save, right?
Yeah.
God delivers Joshua's name. So that's a good reminder there too.
Yeah, definitely.
Hopefully you found this helpful. Our little banter back and forth and the little fun facts and some of the serious things as well. And if you do find it helpful, please share it with other people because they will as well. And we'll be back next time. And I think we have another rebellion to read about.
Oh,
yay.
Oh boy.
We'll be back next time with the next section in the book of Numbers.
Bye, everyone.